Like we don't have 100 years to sort this out. Well, we could take 100 years, but we're not going to be around in anything like the numbers or anything like the lifestyle we have now, unless we get really, really serious about redesigning society and being really brave enough to do what needs to be done. Then nothing really is going to change. They're like the fact that the civilization that we see around us today. This is what I went to say about the difference between more sustainable and sustainable, because it's one thing we always say, let's live more environmentally friendly lives, or let's be more sustainable. We never actually talk about be sustainable, be ecologically friendly, because there's a huge difference. Like more isn't going to be enough for us to be here long term. We don't just have to be more sustainable, we need to be sustainable, and that's crucial to the whole debate. And as David Fleming, who just passed away recently actually, one of the most beautiful people you could possibly meet, he once said one of his quotes was, "Localization is at best at the limits of practical possibility, but it has the distinct advantage of being the only game in town." Something like that. It is the only localization, full localization, not 5%, not 10%, not 15%. Full localization is the only game in town, long term. Civilization is based on importing the stuff that we need into cities, into whatever, and that system is inherently based on violence and destruction. And if you come at this from any other perspective apart from the anthropocentric viewpoint or even the Western human being perspective, then we would all be demanding the end of civilization today. And so what I encourage people to do is actually to not just look at the world from a human perspective, look at it from the perspective of every single species we share this planet. But when we're taking up solutions, don't just look at solutions for human beings, look at solutions for all of life, because it's all precious. You know, it's not just human life that's precious, the whole thing is precious. And we're killing it for every single thing. We're losing 50,000 species a year. Like, if the gravity of that doesn't hit you, then nothing will. Like, I'd actually encourage us all just to even take a minute and just think about the fact that there's rivers in the world now that salmon can't swim up. You know, there's bee pop, you know, the numbers of bees are just dropping dramatically. Think about every single species that has been around here for the longest time, you know, longer than us, and are just dying off. Like I think it's every 7 minutes we're losing a species. And so in the time I take to do this talk, you know, the Earth has lost 4 more species. And just think if that was, yeah, it's not just other creatures, it's human beings. Like our civilization here is based on oil. And I know transition's about transitioning away from oil. But this is where when I say moneyless living, it's my background is in business, and a large part of that was marketing. So I market it in a way that I think will, you know, that's why the kind of media stuff pick up on things, because it's a bit quirky. But what I'm actually talking about is 100% local economy, not 95, not 90, 100% local economy. That's what moneyless living is about. And so until we get back to being fully local, we're never going to be sustainable, and that's just the reality from my perspective. And in, you know, over 3 years of talking about this, I've yet to hear an argument that have convinced me of otherwise than that. So that was the main reason why I gave up money. That was the initial impulse. I feel until we actually start building a relationship again with both the earth underneath our feet and the people in our local community, you can't have community on top of a monetary economy. You just can't do it. What community is about is dependency, and what we think now that we're brought up to strive for independence. Like our parents and our teachers say, let's be independent. You know, that's what we want. Independence. Independence is a complete myth. It's a joke. Like to think that we're ever going to, it's not even desirable. For example, number one, you're dependent on bees, dependent on earthworms, and take it to the next level. Even if we did think we were independent, you're actually dependent on people in South Africa, New Zealand and India and all these places we get our food from now. It's not like we're not dependent on them, we're just not dependent on the people in the local community. And so until we have a fully fully localised economy, then we're not going to have community. It's just not going to happen, because we can sit around and pretend we're having community by having a coffee, you know, and having a pint and doing something quite nice, but until we have that real dependency on people, we're never going to experience true community. And I've experienced, I'm in Bristol, where it's actually probably the best place in the UK to live kind of in a more community-like way, and it's just not community, it's just there's no dependency there. Like, we all know that if we piss somebody off, we can head off to Tesco's and just buy our food next week. The thing about living moneyless is that you can't act like an asshole. Like, if I act like an asshole every day, I don't eat, you know, I'll be dead next week. You don't need a police force in a moneyless economy, because it polices itself. You act like an ass every day, don't expect to get your needs met. And that's why we need police forces now, is because we can act whatever way we want, and we don't have to, we can just take off. The cashier in Tesco's is not going to ask you how have you behaved in the last 24 hours or in the last week. They probably won't even know your name. And so, in a monetary economy, expect a police force, expect an army, because we don't have to have dependency on each other. We don't have to rely on each other for meeting our needs. And so, giving up money, you give up the need for police, for armies. So anyway, I've waffled on far too long about the first three. The second point, and this is a thing I think in terms of, because I set up a thing called free economy, and it's a kind of large alternative economy, which it's in 150 countries around the world now, with quite active local groups. And it's done with, there's no currency there, it's just what I call a paid forward system. The problem I have with any form of money is I fully agree that localised currencies are much better. They're a lot more sustainable. They're building community, and that's why I really support them. And I would really encourage you guys to get involved, because we're not going to have a non-monetary economy tomorrow. So I'd really encourage you guys to get involved with the work these guys are doing. And I really love what you're doing, by the way. But I think the problem I do have with any form of money is that why do we need to get something in return when we do something for someone? Why do we need to get a piece of paper for it? I said that prostitution is to sex what buying and selling is to giving and receiving, and that's true for local currencies. That's true for any currency. When we used to, like, take this for an example. If you went home this evening and you sat down, you cooked a meal for your mum or dad or your partner or your kids, and they came to the table to eat the meal, and you said that's 10 quid. You would rightly get probably a really dirty look, or maybe even a slap. Probably rightly you might get a punch in the side of the ear, because it's a bizarre concept to charge somebody you love for nourishing them. So what I say is that why not just expand what we know in that situation to a wider community? Why do we always, if somebody needs help doing something, if somebody needs something, why do we have to get something in return for that? That's a cultural thing. It's not human nature. It's a very cultural thing. Tribes and people in the past did not need to get something in return. The fact actually that they could do something to help somebody was their reward. And we all know this. We all know this deep inside. We know at Christmas time, for example, when we love to give. This thing that happens once a year. Why not just expand that to in a truly localised economy? Why do we need to get something in return? Why not just do something for the love of it? Why not just do something because you can help somebody? Just think of the uplifting effect. We used to nourish each other with food. We used to grow it for each other. We used to feed people. And now we consume services from strangers. Just think of the difference of those two things. We used to nourish each other with food that had love put into it, and now we consume services. Just think about that. It's a huge difference. And the social and ecological consequences of that are absolutely massive.